It's Tuesday, November 22. In the headlines, school administrators want PATH food funds increased. Regionally, in the Bahamas, PLP denies receiving FTX contributions. Internationally, China's big cities tighten COVID controls again. And in sports, Nicolas Peran quits as white ball captain, and Argentina suffers the biggest blow in first game at FIFA World Cup 2022. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. School administrators and nutritionists are calling for the government to increase its allocation to schools for feeding the program of advanced through health and education students. Principals say they are forced to find creative ways to respond to the inadequacy of funds provided under PATH, a situation which they say has been worsened by inflation and the rising cost of food. The school administrators are not only calling for an increase in allocation to schools for feeding PATH students, but to also expand the program to provide meals for needy students not on PATH. Plans are afoot for the staging of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association's biennial Expo Jamaica trade show, which returns in April 2023. After a 2-year hiatus due to the novel coronavirus pandemic, the event is back to in-person format, and it's scheduled to take place April 27 to April 30 at the National Arena and National Indoor Sports Center. JMEA Executive Director Kamisha Blake says the entity is highly focused on ensuring the event provides opportunities for increasing trade, exports, and investment. Deemed one of the largest and most impactful trade shows of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean, the Expo, since its first staging in 1971, has over the years grown in size and reputation. The cost for treatment of persons with non-communicable diseases, NCDs, remains a troubling issue for the National Health Fund, the NHF. Speaking at a recent meeting of the Public Administration and Appropriation Committee, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dunstan Bryan, said the fund is owed billions of dollars as it has had to increase payouts to treat persons with NCDs.
The arrears with NHF is a function of a wider problem that we're having with non-communicable diseases, and the rate of provision of pharmaceuticals to the population that is becoming sicker over time. Over the last 3 years that I've been in this seat, NHF's budget has moved, budget ask has moved from $6 billion to $12 billion. So that's a 100% increase in 3 years.
He explains that an increase in access to the NHF is a positive for the population, but it comes with financial strain.
When we look at the rates of 1 in 2 persons are obese, when you look at the number of persons that have diabetes, the number of persons hypertensive, all of those indicators are a clear sign of an ever-increasing demand on our pharmaceutical provision.
Mr. Bryan says the cost is due to volume and market movement in the world of pharmaceuticals. He explained that a policy conversation will have to be had to determine what the government can afford. For your information, the NHF card program is without age restrictions and provides subsidies to beneficiaries for the treatment of 17 chronic illnesses.
Every specialist doctor is going to want to see his or her drugs on the vendor list for provision. The question now is, what do you remove?
The term non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, refers to a group of conditions that are not mainly caused by an acute infection, resulting in long-term health consequences, and often create a need for long-term treatment and care. NCDs include heart disease, stroke, Cancer, diabetes, and chronic lung disease are collectively responsible for 74% of all deaths worldwide. This week marks the annual observance of World Antimicrobial Awareness Week. It's being recognized under the theme Preventing Antimicrobial Resistance Together. Jamaica World Antimicrobial Awareness Week activities are being led by the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, in conjunction with the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The week is a World Health Organization-led global campaign that is celebrated annually to improve awareness and understanding of antimicrobial resistance, AMR, and encourage best practices among the public. One Health stakeholders and policymakers who all play a critical role in reducing the further emergence and spread of AMR. Your skin is a window to the rest of your health, according to one dermatologist. If you have a sore that won't heal, discoloration, or rashes you don't have an explanation for, it may be time for a checkup. Christina Dragovich tells us more.
A trip to the dermatologist may save your skin or health in general by picking up on small nuances that may be an indicator of something more than skin deep. We spoke to Dr. Jamie Davis, a dermatologist at Family Medicine Center, about the relationship between skin and diabetes.
It certainly can show some signs before you know you have diabetes, so we watch for those things. Certainly once you know you have it, then we have plenty of advice to help minimize the effects on the skin.
According to the United States National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, diabetes can occur when blood glucose or blood sugar is too high. Getting to the bottom of the issue, Dr. Davis says feet are a huge concern when it comes to managing diabetes.
So we often see minor injuries to the skin of people with diabetes turn into infections, even as deep as bone infections.
November is Diabetes Month. This year, the focus is on building your health team. Dr. Davis, who also practices in Rock Sound, Eleuthera, says diabetics should also watch their feet as the smallest injury or even athlete's foot may lead to infection.
The issue with diabetic feet is the sensation becomes less and less over time. You get a neuropathy, and you don't know if you stubbed your toe or stepped on something. So it's kind of insidious. If you can't feel your feet, you often don't know you have an injury.
She says feet should stay clean, dry, and protected, which may mean trading a pair of flip-flops for enclosed shoes. But it's not all about feet. If you're a woman with certain skin symptoms, Dr. Davis says you should also be screened for diabetes.
Some acne, some unwanted hair growth, weight gain, irregular menstrual periods, we check them for diabetes because that can be part of that syndrome. Even this velvety discoloration around the neck or in the armpits, acanthosis nigricans, is a sign of insulin resistance. So if those things start to sneak up, that's the time to either see your dermatologist or your diabetes specialist and get checked.
Reporting for our news, I'm Christina Dragovich.
In the business report, news from BOJ's quarterly monetary policy press conference last Friday. Dinida Rotney is at the business desk.
Speaking at the Bank of Jamaica's quarterly monetary policy press conference last Friday, Governor Richard Bell says the wage increases and retroactive payments that are now due to public sector workers with the signing of the new compensation agreement will not significantly impact the current inflation rate.
Wage increases will have an upward effect on inflation. That's a natural conclusion. How much of an effect is another matter. We have looked at it and we have done a deep dive into what the potential impact is, and whilst it is negative, meaning it will raise inflation, we don't see it as having terribly significant impact. And I'm sure it is, I mean, all the persons who are going to benefit from it are due to get it. So our view is we will take it in stride, and we will find ways to take that inflation impact out of the economy.
Senior Deputy Governor Dr. Wayne Robinson agreed with the statement and added that the bank will have to watch other areas of the labor market and adjust as needed.
As the governor says, that adjustment in and of itself may not have a significant impact. So we have to watch to see what other aspects, other areas of the labor market is doing. Will the private sector also, will they follow with similar increases? So it's something that we just have to watch and observe over time. And as the incoming data would guide us, we'll then adjust our forecasts and our policy action.
For your market updates, in foreign exchange trading for Monday, November 21, the US dollar sold for an average of $154.69. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $115.65. The pound sterling traded for $181.54, and the euro sold for $159.50. In JSE trading, the JSE index advanced by 2,545 points. The junior market index declined by 41 points. The combined market index advanced by 2,002 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 1,041 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 109 stocks, of which 39 advanced, 45 declined, and 25 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Verbal Preference, and Access Financial Services Limited. Stocks declined for AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were Cargo Handlers Limited, Caribbean Cement Company Limited, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited. The overall volume leaders were Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 6 million units, One-on-One Educational Services Limited with over 4 million units, and Dollar Financial Services Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Pico Investment Fund was the only active security, posting over 80,000 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Epic Caribbean Property Fund Development Fund was the volume leader with over 40,000 shares. They were followed by Epic Caribbean Property Fund Value Fund with over 7,000 shares, and Cave Shepherd and Company Limited with over 6,000 shares. In regional business, Tourism Trinidad Limited is looking to almost double the number of applications received from the Tourism Accommodation Upgrade Project in its bid to revitalize the tourism sector. Sunil Lala has more.
12 years after its official launch in 2010, Tourism Trinidad Limited believes the Tourism Accommodation Upgrade Project, TOUP, has found a renewed interest following the pandemic. It was initially agreed upon by Cabinet in 2009, where applicants received a partial reimbursement of the funds they invested after upgrading their hotel and guest house room stock. Manager Tourism Trinidad Limited Cornell Buckrady says TOUP was born out of the financial crisis of 2008-2009, where hotels were deeply impacted. Fast forward to 2022, he says the program has continued to be relevant following another major crisis, COVID-19.
There's been a sharp resurgence in visitors and use of guest houses and hotels. And if your hotel or guest house is not up to standard, then you're placing yourself at a competitive disadvantage.
Since the inception of the program, 15 properties in Trinidad have benefited, with a half a dozen more properties signing their contracts just last week.
This fiscal has been the year with the greatest sign-up of 6 properties in one shot, in one fiscal year. And that just is clear testimony to the relevance of the TOUP program.
But Mr. Buckrady says all of the applications have come from medium-sized accommodation providers between 6 and 150 rooms, but is hoping for a turnaround for small providers to apply.
We know finance has been a challenge for the smaller properties. So we've been talking to people like the Bankers Association and NEDCO to ease the access to financing, because TOP is a spend first and get reimbursed after program.
He assures that the reimbursement process is a seamless one, which is all geared towards improving the standard of accommodations.
This year, we got a doubling of the allocation that we got from last fiscal. We expect this year, while we had 6 applicants this year, we expect in this current fiscal, we're going to be looking at maybe between 8 to 10 successful applicants, and that could even go to 12.
But Mr. Bakredi says being a part of the TOP program can be quite beneficial in the long run.
That ensures that you have to get audited by Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards and recertified on an annual basis. So the money goes in, and that builds a bit of sustainability into the whole TOP program.
In international business, Wall Street's main indexes ended down on fears that China could resume stricter measures to fight COVID after it said it faces its most severe test of the pandemic.
The Dow shaved just over 0.1%, the S&P dropped nearly 0.4%, and the Nasdaq lost more than 1%. Beijing on Monday said it would shut businesses and schools in hard-hit districts and tighten rules for entering the city as infections ticked higher, spooking investors. Robert Shine is Managing Director, Partner, and Chief Investment Officer at Blanky Shine Wealth Management.
But it's the manufacturing, anybody who's linked to China, any sector who's linked to China, this could cause major sort of currents in the global markets in the weeks and months to come. So it's a story that needs to be watched.
In market data for oil rose after top exporter Saudi Arabia said OPEC Plus was sticking with output cuts and could further steps to balance the market, outweighing global recession worries and concerns about China's rising COVID-19 case numbers. Brent crude rose $1.45 to $88.90, and West Texas Intermediate crude was up $1.16 at $81.20 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, in the Bahamas, while lawyers get set to do battle in the United States over the collapse of crypto trader FTX, the Prime Minister is trying to clear the air over claims that members of the Progressive Labour Party, PLP, received gifts or contributions from FTX. He's also claiming foreign media reports are unfair. Bethany McDermott reports.
Prime Minister Philip Davis shooting down claims that the PLP received donations from FTX. The Prime Minister also insisting he has no interest in FTX.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, and what about cabinet ministers? Anything connected to FTX?
I do not know that. In fact, I'm agnostic to it. I don't hold any wallet.
Recent court filings in Delaware revealed FTX owes its top 50 creditors over $3 billion. The Security Commission froze FTX's assets and applied to the Supreme Court to appoint Brian Sims KC as a court-supervised provisional liquidator. 2 other provisional liquidators have since been named. The Prime Minister also shot down that the government has any exposure to the debacle surrounding the company's collapse.
Only issue I'm concerned about, I have positioned the Bahamas to be the leading jurisdiction in the digital assets space. I'm intending to keep that position, and the only thing of concern is reputational consequences, and I'm dealing with that.
The Bahamas is facing heavy criticism in the international arena due to the company's collapse. Davis is calling it unfair characterizations.
I'm not concerned about our reputation in that regard, because most of what is being said is the posturing of persons who would wish to have the liquidation under their control. So once that is settled, you'll see that everything will just flow away.
For the first time, an audio recording has been released of the 5 men speaking inside the pipeline on the day the Paria diving tragedy unfolded. This as the Commission of Inquiry into the incident started. Charlene Ramprasad has more.
I'm trying to come up. Come on, all I mean, let's figure it out. We gotta go. We gotta start moving. as the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy got underway on Monday morning. This recording from the GoPro worn by Kazim Ali Jr. was played. Ali Jr., Faisal Kurban, Rishi Nagasa, Yusuf Henry, and Christopher Budram were sucked into a pipeline on February 25th while doing underwater maintenance on Paria Fuel Trading Company's Berth 6 in Pointe-a-Pierre. The pipeline was 36 inches wide, or about the size of this hoop. Counsel to the CEO, Senior Counsel Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, said the footage recovered from Ali Jr.'s GoPro was almost 7 minutes long.
Can everything all right with you? No. Any items break? All leg. Your leg, all right. 5. Anything happen to you? No. A 5? No way. Can anything happen to you? Yusuf, anything happen to you? Yeah, boy. What happened?
As Maharaj revealed details of the tragic incident, the Commission's chairman, King's Counsel Jerome Lynn, interjected.
So for 3 hours, no one, or they at least, did not consider that any of the divers were actually inside the pipe?
Correct, Mr.
So they were just looking in the ocean?
According to the evidence, correct.
Right. 3 hours?
Yeah.
And what triggered them to believe that they might be inside the pipe was the fact that Mr. Budram came out of it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Lynch has warned the attorneys for the different stakeholders to be sensitive when they cross-examine Budram, who is expected to be the first witness to give evidence in the inquiry. Lynch will lead a team from the Commission to visit the site of the tragedy on Thursday morning.
In Trinidad and Tobago, while Tobago welcomed the start of the new cruise ship season, the island received another tourism boost on Sunday with the return of Condor Airlines. Secretary for Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation shared a few words about the airlift increased on Monday.
Very, very excited at the fact that we're back in the German market in a real way. And with Condor landing yesterday, it means that, hey, we're welcoming our passengers from the UK, passengers from Germany, international passengers via our cruise ships, and obviously our domestic tourism sector certainly is picking up. So great news for Tobago, great news for tourism in general.
Secretary Burris is urging Tobagoanians to take advantage of the opportunities available with the revitalization of Tobago's tourism sector.
See how you could get involved. The THA has a number of grants available. There are a number of things available for persons who want to get involved in the tourism sector. I've been having discussions with hotels. They are also looking for staff so that there are jobs available as well. Don't just depend on the THA to provide employment, but the sector is now growing. It's opening back. So hotels need to get back more staff. And training is available. THTI is open. The opportunities are there. So
while there will be a significant positive impact of pension payout on the Grenadian economy, one consultant and economist is also cautioning that there may be a downside to that if unchecked, which can have significant implications over the medium and long term.
Pension payouts are expected to reach in the vicinity of $75 million by year end. That's a significant amount of money that is expected to be injected into Grenadia's economy to over 500 pensioners. In light of this, consultant or economist Dr. Stephen Fletcher has shared some likely predictions. He said while pension payouts can signal an uptick in economic activities over the holidays, from an economist's perspective, other factors must be taken into serious consideration. One of the issues he said that must be looked at is how will the pension payment impact inflation over the medium to long term.
How would the pension payments likely to impact on inflation? Because you're having a significant input of cash injection into the economy. And how would the economy, by virtue of the businesses, respond to that?
Another factor to be considered is the likelihood of price gouging on goods not regulated.
The view that there will be quite a lot of money floating around in the economy, millions of dollars, people can begin to increase their prices, and therefore one of the negative consequences is a general increase in prices because of that. I hope that does not happen. I hope that the business cycles will proceed as they ought to, and that there is not a deliberate attempt to in any way increase prices in a way that will negatively impact on the injection that we are seeing in the economy.
On the flip side, Dr. Fletcher noted that an analysis of the present public consumption patterns indicates that a large amount of money is spent on immediate consumption. He added that based on pent-up demand, pensioners will be tempted to spend on items that are not economically viable in the long term.
In international news, Beijing has shut parks, shopping malls and museums, while more Chinese cities resumed mass testing for COVID as China fights a spike in cases.
China is stepping up measures to control new COVID outbreaks and risking public discontent as it does. Beijing shut parks, malls and museums on Tuesday. Tianjin and other big cities resumed mass testing for the virus. Wuhan told residents only to travel between home and work. Analysts at Nomura estimate that areas accounting for around a fifth of the country's GDP are now under some kind of curbs. The moves have renewed investor concern over China's economy, sending global stocks and oil prices lower. In Beijing, authorities have warned that the city faces its toughest test yet. But one resident said the restrictions were no longer really about virus control.
这个怎么说呢？这是一个政治的问题。
How do I say this? This is a political problem, or a problem that has to do with the political environment. It does not have much to do with medical prevention anymore. At least that is what I believe. Some time ago, China had already declared a victory over this virus. We said we had won. Now we can't reopen. If this policy is considered the correct one, then we can't possibly reverse it.
这个做法已经是对的了，就不可能再推翻了，就是这样。
Investors had hoped that China's move to more targeted testing and control measures would herald reopening. But in Beijing, many businesses now fear they may not survive until next year.
In sports, Saudi Arabia scored one of the biggest World Cup upsets ever by beating Lionel Messi's Argentina 2-1 on Tuesday. Goals by Salah Al-Shehri and Salem Al-Dawsari in a 5-minute span in the second half gave the Saudis their greatest win. Messi rolled in a penalty to give Argentina a 10th-minute goal. Denmark versus Tunisia, that game ended in a 0-0. And in other sporting news, Cricket West Indies confirmed on Monday that Nicholas Pooran has decided to relinquish the white ball captaincy of the West Indies men's team following the team's exit from the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2022 tournament, just completed in Australia. CWI Director of Cricket Jimmy Adams says, quote, "On behalf of CWI, I want to thank Nicholas for his time leading our white ball teams. Having spoken with him, I know he remains fully committed to West Indies cricket, and I am convinced he has a big role to play in our future." End quote. Speaking to PBCJ's news team is international cricket commentator Barry Wilkinson as he shares his thoughts on Pooran's decision.
I'm not too surprised that Nicholas Pooran has given up the one-day captaincy. To be quite honest, it was always going to be a Herculean task for him. And the main problem here is succession planning in West Indies cricket. Kieron Pollard held the position for quite a while, but I don't think that Nicholas had enough experience on his belt to replace Kieron Pollard as captain. In addition to that, the West Indies team has not been a settled one. It's always a question of who is available and who is not available. So Pooran had a very tough time in terms of building the team. Building a team in West Indies cricket is one of the most difficult things to do at the white ball level because players don't necessarily always want to play for the West Indies. A lot of them are freelancers, like they choose to play in the other leagues. So Nicholas Pooran never had a chance to really build a team, and that is the crux of the matter. That is the main problem. West Indies cricket is finding itself very difficult to build a team, so whoever captains is going to have an issue. What they have to do is to ensure that they're going to have a nucleus of players that they can call upon, build the team. It will take a couple of years, but if they can build a team with that captain, then whoever the captain is will find it easier. But Pooran was always going to have a difficult task, and as a result of the consistency in losing, I'm not too surprised that he called it quits.
The West Indies men's next white ball series is against South Africa in March 2023. And that's the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.